friends! Are you guys sick of spending a ton of money on groceries? Do you ever look in your cupboards or in your fridge and you have food in there but absolutely nothing to eat? This video is for you. I live in Ontario, we have a family of 4, and the average price of groceries per month in my province is anywhere between $1,200 to $1,700, $1,800, depending on which source you look at. It's a lot of money just to eat, right? So I have been working really hard over the last few years to figure out tips and tricks to help my family reduce our grocery bill, and we have been able to cut it in half. This video is just one of the tips that I use that really helped us make a huge dent in our groceries. And honestly, this one seems like the most obvious, but is actually quite a bit of work to do, and it really pays off at the same time. So what is shopping your stash? Basically, shopping your stash is you are going to be using up the ingredients you already have before buying more. Sounds really obvious, and I would have told you before implementing all the tips I'm going to share with you in this video, I would have already said, oh, well, I already do that. But we're going to go a little bit deeper. I will also say that there is a Canadian creator on TikTok. I will put her account over here on the side of the screen so you can go follow her. She has basically an entire TikTok channel that is somewhat dedicated to this concept. I believe her tagline that she's always using in her videos is, we use what we have. It's so valuable. I don't think people realize how much food they are wasting. And I, for one, would have argued that I wasn't wasting much food at all, barely anything, until I started using this method and I realized how much money I could save pretty quickly. This method is great for reducing waste. It's great for saving money. This method, though, it does take quite a bit of time. I'm a work from home parent, and so because I have a little bit more time than a parent maybe who's like going outside of the home, I do want to recognize that privilege when I'm talking about this technique in particular, just because I know for some people it gets a little frustrating when you hear about tips and tricks and you're like, I don't have the time to do all that. Listen, it is really tricky. I will say that when we started implementing all of these tips and tricks that I use, the first couple of months or so, it was a little bit more of a burden trying to get everything down pat, but now I'm so in the habit of it. It just goes so much more quickly. I also have my husband who's on board who helps with all of this stuff, which definitely is really great for the mental load, helps reduce that. So things to keep in mind. Let's start with the examples. Step number 1 is you're gonna take inventory. You're gonna go into your kitchen, you're gonna check out your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer. This can be done the quick way, which is obviously you just open the doors, you look quickly what you have, you move a few things out of the way, check what's in the back, make sure nothing's molding. Or you can do it the long way and like check in your pantry for expiration dates for things and try to prioritize what you have that's running out and it's gonna go bad soon over just like what's available. You can do the quick or the slow way. That's step number 1, leading us to step number 2. If possible, I also recommend having a running list of what's in your freezer. I keep mine on like the back of our family calendar, and then I cross things out as we use them so I don't forget what's in the freezer, because yeah, things in the freezer, they also sometimes go bad. And again, the goal is to like not waste food, and above all, not to waste money, especially when you have good things to eat. Step number 2, we are gonna go and create our grocery list for that week. And we're gonna try and base as many meals as possible on things we already have. If you've got beans and cheese and tortillas, you have cheesy bean burritos for lunch one day, right? That's all it takes. Just very simple things like that. Trying to base as many meals as possible based on things that you've already got going on. That is gonna help reduce our meals, but maybe you just have the beans and the tortillas and no cheese. So you can put cheese on your grocery list, right? Trying to build as many meals as possible based on things we already have. And if you're lacking creativity, or you're like, I bought these dried lentils a year ago, no idea what to do with them, there are a ton of websites where you can go online and type in what you have in your kitchen, and they're going to help you come up with a bunch of different meal plans. I believe there was one that used to be called Super Cook or something like that. I'll put a screenshot up on the screen. You go on websites like that, and it's pretty easy to just type in all the random ingredients you have at home, and it's gonna give you some recipes with the things you already have. And then with things where you're like, I almost have enough to make a meal here, but not quite, filling in those gaps when you go grocery shopping, you're gonna end up spending so much less money. Step number 3, if you really wanna maximize how much money you're gonna save, is to get used to substitutions and get creative. For example, if you need sour cream, yogurt, plain yogurt, obviously not the sugared stuff, will work in a pinch. Different types of oil can often replace other types of oil. I find the apple cider vinegar is a really good substitute for some of the fancier vinegars like rice vinegar, things like that. Those are all fun to have on hand, all of those extra fancy ingredients, but for simplicity's sake or for small budget sake, you can often replace those. If you're wondering, what can I replace this item with? Just Google it. Type in substitute for eggs, for for example, and you're gonna get a bunch of different results online. They're gonna tell you for what types of recipes you can use what types of ingredients to replace what you're missing. And that'll also save you quite a bit of money, and you might even end up using some products that you were a little bit worried were gonna go to waste, but ends up working out. Step number 4, we're gonna stretch our ingredients to reduce waste. Vegetable scraps and animal bones like chicken bones, beef bones, things like that. Many of those things can be turned into bouillons and broths, especially like I have an Instant Pot. I'm able to make all of those things homemade just with literal scraps, which is super convenient and very, very cheap. A big thing that we've been doing this year to save money is also learning how to properly store food, knowing which vegetables and fruits we can freeze, how to freeze them properly so that they'll last longer. There are so many things. I would say Wednesday is my main day. I've picked Wednesday as my day of the week when I go in and I try to look in the fridge and see what is going bad. If there are vegetables, if there are fruits that are just like getting near their expiration date, I either prep to freeze them, or if they're things that I can't really freeze, I try to figure out how I can turn them into an afternoon snack for my kids. I'm also gonna put a list up here on the screen of items that are really good to have as base items in your pantry. And if you have these items, they can often replace other items and recipes. That's gonna make it so much easier for you to be able to shop your stash. So to say, if you're looking for specific recipes, you'll already have a lot of substitutions on hand. They're just gonna make things easier. A lot of times those fancy recipes that have like these really fancy vinegars and super cool oils and stuff, those are really, really fun to make. But if you're only gonna use that oil or that special type of vinegar like once a year, it might not be worth it. It might be worth just doing the substitution. So definitely something to look into if you're on a very tight budget. But let's talk about how much money you're actually going to save doing this. Let's say you only replace one meal a week with some stuff you already have. You try to shop your stash just for one extra meal per week rather than going to the store and getting all new ingredients for it. That'll save you $10 to $15 a week. Let's say for simplicity's sake that it's saving you $50 a month. That's $600 a year, which is already pretty good. So even if you don't have time to do this extensively, you only have time to quickly look over your stash. In my opinion, if you're on a budget and having a little bit of a struggle trying to keep within that budget, this can be a quick way to reduce your bills. I also like to share numbers on how much we saved personally, keeping in mind these are not guarantees for how much you're going to be able to save. You might be able to save a lot more than me. You might be like way cooler and smarter than me, but using the tips in this video, plus all of the tips in the other videos that I've been sharing in this series and the tips that I'm going to be sharing soon as well, when we put all of those things together, this ended up cutting our bills in half. We were spending about $1,200 a month, and it kept increasing with inflation. This was a few years ago now, and I was getting really, really stressed out because I already felt like every time I went to the grocery store that I was under so much stress to stick within that budget and that it was increasingly difficult to do so. So when I combined this step with all of the other steps that I've shared again in the other videos, so not just this one alone, but a multiple, I was able to cut our grocery budget for our family of 4 in Ontario from $1,200 a month down to $600, keeping in mind the average for a family of 4 in Ontario is between $1,200 and $1,800, depending on what source you're looking at. I looked up these numbers about a year ago, so I bet it's gone up since then, especially with inflation. And hopefully this will help some families be able to get closer to their eating and budget goals with these tips. That's my goal of this. So as always, if you have really cool tips to share, please share them down below in the comments because everyone can benefit. And I ran up the stairs with this, I'm like out of breath. It's embarrassing. Okay, let me check my notes. I made notes here. I didn't want to forget anything. Oh, I do have a couple more good ones. Listen to this. I also like to do, even when things are going real well financially and everything, and there's no like trying to save money. I mean, you should always be trying to save money, right? But when it's not expediently urgent, if it's not something we have to do, but I think it's a good idea just to reduce waste in general, we always like to pick a month out of the year. We normally do it in January when our goal is to empty our pantry and our freezer and our fridge as much as possible before going grocery shopping. And during that month, we try to grocery shop for only like the bare necessities with the goal of emptying our pantry, even of stuff we don't really like that much, just so we can have a month where our budget reset and also we reset what's in our pantry and we don't slowly over the years stock up and have like, I don't know, old quinoa that's going bad because nobody likes quinoa in our family, that type of a thing. That happens in families. Sometimes you'll go to your grandma's house and you're gonna find some whole wheat flour that expired like 5 years ago. This is the thing. And then that money we can spend on buying more fun foods that we do enjoy, the money that we're able to save from that. So definitely worth keeping in mind. You can do a no spend challenge for like a month. You could do a no spend challenge for a week. Try to only go grocery shopping one day a week. And on the other days, if you're missing an ingredient, do your best to substitute it. That can be a challenge. There's lots of different things you can do to kind of reset your spending habits when it comes to food and also reduce waste. Let me know in the comments if you have ever tried shopping your stash, and if you have, how much money did you end up saving? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tips on saving money while living in Canada.